Help! I slept with all of his friends. His revenge left me homeless and broke.
I would never forget the day my life went downhill within a blink of an eye. I thought I was having fun and exploring what I had not done before. All I wanted was to experience and venture into new things that my husband was not offering. You know, sometimes it's really bad to get married when your heart still wants to explore other things. It's like getting married when you are not even ready for commitment. My husband was very boring and always busy with work to a point that he didn't even try to make time for me. As his wife, it would always be either his work or gone to business trips that take months for him to come back. So I am young and still beautiful, so I thought, why not try what I had been missing out ever since I got married? Well, my work history is not too good, so some might know what I mean when I say some old habits die hard. If I knew better, I would have done things a different way, or I wouldn't have done anything that would jeopardize my marriage and my image. How does one deal with the most cruel and humiliating act that my husband had taken because I had done him wrong? How do I recover from this? Let me take you to what happened. Please do not judge me but advise me. So I, female, 33, and my husband Dominic, a male, 40, met at a cafe that I was working at in LA, while I was also working at a strip club during weekends and holidays. That time I was only 22, going to be turning 23 in a couple of months to come. He had come for some business meeting, if I was not mistaken, because he once told me that when we met, he was still trying to grow his architectural business since he had worked as a building planner and designer. The day we met, it wasn't a very pleasant day for me because I was not working at a cafe because I liked to. But it was the circumstances that I was facing at home. You know, since I was the only girl child who got a chance to further her studies. I was raised by a single mother who is also dealing with her own drinking problems, so I had to become an adult to her and my younger siblings. I worked at a cafe to raise more funds to pay for my tuition fees and make amends to take care of my younger siblings. So I didn't get a chance to enjoy my youth and do what my age mates did. One day he asked for my numbers, telling me that he loved my service, so he would like to get my work schedule so he would know if I was working or not. Because there was this time one of my colleagues told me that Dominic had come to the cafe when I was not at work and asked to be served by me, so when he was told that I was not working, he told them that he would go to another cafe for his coffee until I was back. Mind you, that time I was in the middle of my exams, so I had to focus on my books. He was such a charmer and a smooth talker. As time passed, I went out with him. He was a very smart man and business-minded, but what I had noticed about him was that he didn't take any *T from anyone and find out later that he was actually a Capricorn. He was smart, business-minded, funny and kind, but he had a very low temper and he was very strict. He always wanted perfection. I had thought they were playing when they say never fool a Capricorn because their revenge is always wrath and cruel. I learned that the hard way. One thing that I can advise people on is that if you are dating a Capricorn while you are a Gemini, just prepared that your relationship will always have very serious ups and downs because a Gemini has their own short temper and Capricorn also, but the Capricorn always wants to have an upper hand. They lead, so as the Gemini you will have to understand that and thread carefully. Because once you do them wrong, you would have poured gas or paraffin on an already blazing devil's fire. Ask me, I know how it's like to date and even get married to a Capricorn while you are a Gemini. So I am talking from experience. Anyway, Dominic was really romantic and loving. He knew how to treat a woman like a queen. So we continued going out. He showered me with so much love and gifts. The way I was falling harder and harder for him every day, I eventually found myself like I was possessive over him or obsessed, I don't know. I would get angry if he was not answering my calls, or he would come to have one of his meetings in a cafe with a woman. Was I being obsessive or possessive over the poor guy? Time passed and we started dating. He had confessed his feelings for me, but I kept turning him down and preferred having only a friendship relationship because I had thought I was not the type of girl he would want to be with. 2. I was afraid of telling him about my job as a stripper and sex worker to get money. I just couldn't tell him what I was doing for a living except for the fact that I was working at a cafe, which he knew since we first met there. I was ashamed of my second job, and on the other hand I had fallen for the guy, but I was doubting myself. After a year of dating, he proposed and we got married. My mother was also okay. Dominic had gotten her some help to take out the addiction of alcohol she had, and he was taking good care of my siblings. I wouldn't have to ask for me. I mean, he was doing enough for me and my family, but one thing I knew was that I didn't know if I loved him deeply or I just loved the benefits he was coming with. I had graduated before we got married and the guy wanted to start building his own empire, meaning he wanted to have children that would take over when he either retires or passes on. Time passed and I had told myself that I would leave the strip club and at least focus on my new venture business that my husband had helped me start. I had started a marketing business, which was advertising or promoting his architectural business, which grew over time from promoting my husband's business to promoting for bigger companies. I loved the change that was happening, being independent, having to enjoy my own hard-earned money while I knew that my family was well taken care of. It was a breath of fresh air, most especially when you know that your mother had become the person who had always prayed for her to be. As my business was doing well, I had quitted being a stripper and a sex worker. Well, I quitted when I had started dating Dominic for a couple of months. His love, attention and affection couldn't let me continue with the job, so I had to change for him, well, not for him only but also for myself to grow. So when I was working at a strip club, I had gotten regular clients who would just call me to ask for my service in exchange for money, of course. They were very helpful during that time, but when I got into a relationship with Dominic and I had seen that it was getting serious, I had to cut all the deals we had off and delete their contacts because I didn't want to put my first serious relationship in jeopardy. About a couple of months later, I started getting sick so much to a point that even my husband got worried and decided to take me to the doctor because I was losing weight and had no energy to even satisfy my husband's needs as I had to. That sickness was stressing me out because I had thought of the worst, like my husband would cheat or find someone else better, who would fulfill his desires and bear him a child, or he would divorce me because he wouldn't be able to keep up with a sick person. But he stayed around and even took some months off work to take care of me. I would appreciate that till I take my last breath. So the doctor had admitted me, saying my blood level was too low, I was not eating well enough, which was too risky, especially in the condition I was in. My husband was confused about the condition the doctor was talking about, so was I. So he furthered his explanation by telling us that we were pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I was happy, but my husband was happier and I loved seeing him so happy. Since then he started being fussy over me, making sure I was eating well and I was taking care of myself, but he was overdoing it, though I couldn't complain. I had a good support system that my husband was giving me. Not to mention the love he showered me with, it was breathtakingly refreshing. I don't really know what had gone wrong with him like that. I guess it was selfishness and greed, I don't know. As much as our intimate moments were on the level that satisfied me, but he loved me, and I should have embraced that. And what did I do? I betrayed him in a most painful and cruel way. A year later I had given birth to a very cute and beautiful baby girl. Was I not happy? I was ecstatic, but I couldn't say the same with my husband because he had wanted and hoped for a boy. So a year after our daughter was born, he became distant, going to work earlier than he used to and coming back late. Our marriage was no longer the same and it was breaking my heart because he was very much in love and supportive during the whole pregnancy journey, but when the child was born, he stuck around for 6 months, then he started his acts. The more Dominic was acting offish and absent to our daughter and I, the more I kept having thoughts about him. He was no longer the loving, romantic, kind and caring husband that I had married. Wasn't he the one who had been pestering me about starting our own family, building his empire and all that? But when the baby was born, he changed. And he changed for the worst. Mind you, the child looked so much like him, but that didn't give him any motivation to show some love and kindness to his child. He was treating me like I was cheating on him or I had cheated on him. Time passed and I saw no change in Dominic's behavior, but it was getting worse each day. I couldn't take it anymore, it was tearing me apart because I didn't know what his problem was, and if I tried to communicate with him about it, he would say there was no problem and he loved our daughter. His words were saying something else while his actions were saying another thing, so what he was saying versus what he was doing was not colliding even a little. So I took my child to my mother's house. I was glad that my mother had fully recovered from her alcohol addiction and he had become a mother we had always wished for, to me and my siblings, and he showed so much love to my daughter, which was another thing I was grateful for. So I left my baby girl for a full 2 months, telling my mother that I wanted to fix my marriage with Dominic and plead with him to accept that he had a chance to have a child even if she wasn't what he had expected, but she was still his child, his blood and semen. During my efforts to fix our marriage, the man of the house didn't seem to change. Yes, he would tell me that he loved me, but what about our daughter? What he was doing to me and our daughter was slowly finishing the love I had for him. What is love exactly if you are not showing it, but keep saying it like it's a chorus in your favorite song? How can a person say they love you, but they can't love their own seed? It was really confusing and heartbreaking because if I were to choose between my husband and our daughter, I would definitely choose our daughter because his love that he said he had for us was not enough. In fact, it was just lousy and useless words because his actions were saying a different thing. One day he had invited his friends for a break to celebrate his success in getting a client in Africa. I was proud of him and his achievements. I won't lie, he had worked very hard to get that contract and he eventually did through his hard work and dedication. So as the good wife that I was, I helped him prepare for the break that he was hosting. He had asked me to help him because he first wanted to celebrate with his friends, then invite the family later on when the contract was confirmed and signed. I helped him with everything that he needed. My daughter was still with my mother at that time. So when his friends came, I didn't know all of his friends, I only knew a few. I got the shock of my life. 2 of his friends were my clients back then when I was working at a strip club. One of them used to ask me for my intimate service and the other would come to the strip club for the dance only. I just couldn't believe how small the world was and I got uncomfortable at the fact that they might tell my husband about my past with them. Another thing I wouldn't know is that they were my husband's friends because they were not at our wedding celebration. Worst part was that both of them had asked for my service 2 weeks before my wedding with Dominic. They had asked me on different days and I wouldn't have guessed that they were somehow friends. Yes, I am not proud of what I had done to my husband because he had shown me nothing but true love and the guys had promised to give me good money and they wanted a good service before they would go on a business trip. That was what they told me. If I knew that they were my husband's friends, I wouldn't have agreed to commit adultery 2 weeks before I got married. Throughout the whole celebration I was so uncomfortable. The lusting eyes that the guys were giving made me more uncomfortable. I didn't know how these guys would act when they got drunk because they were drinking like it was their last time, or what they would tell Dominic. You know how some guys are. And according to what I had seen, it looked like the whole squad knew that the 2 guys were womanizers. The other one liked going to strip clubs while the other one loved sex. So it was scary. I was not even myself, but luckily no one noticed. About a month later, I received a call from Tom, one of Dominic's friends, the one who loved sex. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other before my wedding. He asked me to meet him at a certain hotel for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody, his sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter, or even try to play with her, that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married, and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to Dominic's celebratory break. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth and if the battle that I was trying to win with Dominic was worth it, and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My marketing company on the other side was doing well. It was the best distraction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out, to live a little, I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up, just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy, but for me it wasn't, I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore, to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed. While I was left to finish up everything, I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going, since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom, but I dismissed that. But maybe we did have a fun relationship, which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party, I noticed a few of Dominic's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to, or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Dominic's friends, including Tom. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body, so it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late, and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to a point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys, who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Kenny. So as I was busy dancing, I told the guys to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded them to follow me to the room and they complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for them and seduced them to a point that Tom and Kenny started touching me, and boom, we were having a threesome. I was enjoying the way that they were touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy had gone and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with two of these guys. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them before rushing home. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his drawings. He was doing a very good job and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping, in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep *T because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not tell him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, I had been living in fear and thought that my husband was seeing through me what I had done. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. During those weeks, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house. When I asked him why he was doing that, he told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know, when you get that feeling that tells you that everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north side. That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week after he had moved out, a delivery guy had come to the house, stating that he had come to deliver the parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know ma'am, I am just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business clients. Little did I know that it was actually divorce papers and another paper that stated that Dominic was taking full custody of Chrissy. I thought I was going crazy, like my mind was about to burst like a bomb. I couldn't believe why Dominic would just decide to send me such things. Why couldn't he sit down with me and talk like married and matured parents? But he went there and filed for a divorce plus full custody of the very same daughter he had neglected for a year. I couldn't let him win just like that. If he wanted to go, he should have told me, but not take my daughter. I called our family and asked for an urgent meeting with Dominic because everything was going through our lawyers. Luckily, the week didn't end and the lawyer had confirmed that we would meet in the next 3 days. So when we got there, I asked Dominic why he was divorcing me and why he wanted to take full custody of my child. The answers he gave me were more than enough to make me depressed and think of the worst of myself. He told me that he knew that I had cheated on him with 3 of his friends, and I didn't start there because he also found out that I had cheated again 2 weeks before our wedding day. He furthered by saying that he knew about my past job and that the cafe job was just a front job for me. I didn't understand where he had taken all that information. My mind had thought that maybe Tom might have told him. But I found out that he didn't. Dominic had found all of that by himself, and his trusted friends had told me that I had gone to the private party that they had hosted and Tom introduced me as his fun girl. I had no comeback when he said, so I opted to just humble myself and apologize, hoping that we would maybe try and work things out for the sake of our daughter. He was not having. He was so furious even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Dominic angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed I couldn't control it. And forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family and I was a married woman. But what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends and God, and there was nothing I could have done to save my marriage. I tried pleading with Dominic to at least have mercy and not take my daughter away, but the guy just told us that he was done talking and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him that I had signed the papers. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't go back to being the person I was before I found Dominic, so I tried fighting for what was mine. During my efforts of trying to fight for my daughter, Dominic did the worst thing possible. He had gone to one of the gossip journalists and told them that he had taken his company out of my marketing company. He would no longer use my company for his business because I was untrustworthy and an unreliable person. He furthered his statement by saying that my marketing company is just a front to get more clients, but my real self was a body seller, a stripper, and a mother to the daughter that I would always take to my mother's place so I would have time to satisfy my clients. I couldn't believe that the guy I had loved and fought so hard for him to notice me as his wife would just go to journalists and tarnish my name just like that. After that, I lost so many clients to a point that I didn't even know how and where I would start and pick up the pieces that the person I had once loved had scattered. You know, when a person says they were drowning in deep muddy waters. I was that person. I was drowning in muddy water and I couldn't swim. I resorted to finding closure in alcohol. I became what my mother was. At that time I understood why my mother was an alcoholic. My life was down and out. I had lost the only person who showered me with love and care and gave me a very beautiful daughter. Now I had lost that daughter plus something that was so dear in my heart, my company. I was really depressed and wished to just go far away where there were no troubles and sorrows. 6 months later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost, including my daughter, but instead it would take me straight to the morgue, and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I went to the rehabilitation center for 6 months, while attending AA meetings when I was inside. By the time I came out, I was a whole new person. I had discovered what my worth was and what I wanted. I started by asking for at least a joint custody of my daughter, which I got by the grace of God. I made peace with Dominic even though he was still disappointed in me, but we became civil parents for the sake of our daughter. I then started another social media marketing and a non-profit organization for women who were once in my shoes. I am happy with the changes in my life. Everything that happened didn't only break me, but they groomed me to be the better version of myself and be able to help others who are like me. As I have mentioned that I do not need or condone any judgment, I am still ashamed of my past. Please give me guides on how I should have done things. If there is anyone who was once like me, how did you come out of the situation without losing your life partner?
I have learned that if you have kids around, you need to always hide things in a very deep and sacred place where they won't get them. You know, my kids are very smart for their age, and the pictures that they found while hunting for their favorite Christmas spy almost ruined everything. You know, it almost tore the family apart. Our Christmas Day mood went from 100% mood to a 0 real quick. I really regret what my past almost did to my family. I am still in disbelief that my deepest and darkest secret, something I had thought I had hidden and even forgot about, would be found by my own children. The worst part was that my husband saw them too. I had left my previous life behind, but I guess every dark and dirty past will always come back and haunt you in the future, if you do not deal with it and be honest about it. I still don't know what to do. Please advise me on this one. I am shattered. What I had thought would be a very good day with the family became the worst and dull day of my life. Now I am on the verge of losing everything because of pictures. I do not know how to deal with this. It's hurting me so much, and my kids no longer look at me the same. What should I do? Let me break it down for you quickly so you can get the picture of what really had transpired. My name is Stephanie, female 28. I am married to David, male 28. Well, David and I got married right after we graduated from college 4 years ago. I can say he is my high school lover. Even though we were not studying in the same high school then, we studied at the same college. We fell in love in a most unexpected way. I mean, he was an IT, the most wanted guy at school, and I was just an ordinary girl who grew up in a not-so-good background. I won't say I am proud of my background and where I am coming from, but it has taught me a lot about who I am and about life. You know, when a person with a bad background as mine says, I have tasted poverty and did some things I'm not proud of, but I did them to survive, and I have also tasted good life with so much happiness and love. So do not think, just because I am now living the life I had always wanted to live, you can easily break me and take me back to where I was. I am now a qualified urologic. I deal with male issues mostly, while I am also running a nonprofit organization for people with a background like mine. My husband and I have beautiful twins who are super naughty but wouldn't trade them for anything. I got them in my first year in college. It was a bit challenging having to focus on your studies while pregnant, especially with twins, but my husband was there throughout the whole pregnancy journey. My twins are now 9 years old, and they are the most precious gift that God has ever given me. So I grew up in a small town of Tupelo in Mississippi. I was raised by a very violent and abusive aunt since my mother was late, and I don't even know my father. I grew up having that space of needing a father's love, attention, and protection. You know, everything that I was going through at home was unbearable to a point that I had to go out there and hustle so that my aunt would stop complaining. It was a very tough time for me, because on the other side, I still had to focus at school and make sure that I passed all my grades, so I would be able to get out of the bad background. Sometimes I would wish my mother was still alive, but she passed on when I was too young. So my aunt took me in. I will always appreciate that because none of the family members wanted to take me in, so my aunt took it upon herself to take me in. A lot had happened when my mother passed on because the other family members had taken my mother's house. Meaning, if my aunt didn't take me in, I would have been a junkie maybe somewhere, sleeping under bridges. When I was in 6th grade, my aunt took me to the brothel that she once owned. I couldn't believe that she would take me to that disgusting place and actually tell me that if I still wanted to live in her house, I would have to meet her halfway and hustle. I first didn't understand what she was talking about. I mean, I was only 13 years. In my mind, I was asking myself, why would Auntie Jade introduce me to that filthy place? I mean, I would have tried other hustling options like selling sweets at school or something, but she wanted me to work at her brothel. I had no choice but to take her offer because she even threatened to kick me out of the house and deprive me food. She told me that as a woman, I had to hustle, so I would not sleep on an empty stomach. I missed my mother every day during my first time in the brothel. My aunt introduced me to some old men, saying that they were my clients. Mind you, that time, I didn't even know what the word client meant. So my aunt wanted me to do the dance for those old men and give them a show. Time passed. When I was 17, I had gotten used to the hustling and I had become a sex worker. I would get clients who needed sexual desires. There were also regulars that would only need my service. I was grateful at the fact that my aunt allowed me to go to school because that was not the life I had planned to have. So I made sure to work my butt off at school, so I would at least get a scholarship to go to college, so I would leave the hellhole. So one day, David was visiting his grandmother in the neighborhood. That was when I actually met him. Well, more like he had moved to live with his grandmother, because I found out about 2 days later that he was going to study at Tupelo High School when my aunt told me that I should play far from him. My aunt had some issues with affording people, I think, because she would always find a way or something bad to say about them. David and I became friends for a year in high school, despite my aunt's disapproval. I didn't tell David about my hustling side. I knew I had to tell him, but I didn't know how to, so I vowed to keep it to myself for as long as I live. I was too ashamed to even share what had been going on at home because I was scared of being judged. And I had thoughts that maybe he would no longer want to be my boyfriend because of my background. My aunt's brothel used to have cameras for safety purposes, so everything we did, even every client we satisfied, we got recorded just in case they wanted to take advantage of us. When I was accepted at William Carey University College of Osteopathic Medicine, I was ecstatic. One, I was glad that I would finally get a chance to live at my aunt's house and chase my goals. Even though my aunt didn't want me to go, saying who would look after the business and take care of his clients if I was not there. That time, I knew that if I didn't stand up for myself and my aunt's abusive behavior, I would never escape, and I needed to chase my dreams. Little did I know that in my first year in college, I would get pregnant and my scholarship was taken away. That was the most heartbreaking episode that I had gone through. Luckily, the peanuts that my aunt would give me after I had finished with my job, I had managed to save them, even though it was not going to be enough for the whole 4 years of study. During that time, I had to focus at school while working as a waitress in one of the nearby restaurants. David was there with me during the whole pregnancy journey, and I appreciated his support and love. Later on in my pregnancy, I had moved in with David. Our relationship had its own fair share of ups and downs, but we managed to get through every circumstance. It was a bit challenging having to take care of the children while focusing at work. I would sometimes slack on something until David suggested that we get a nanny for our kids because we were both in college, so we had to focus. Few years later, we got married during summer holidays. Before we got married, I think a few months before David and I got married, I got a call from my aunt's friend and neighbor, Auntie Haley, telling me that I had to come to my aunt's house she had passed on. I know that I should have felt some kind of hurt, or at least cry, because she had taken me into her home and groomed me, even though it wasn't a very pleasant grooming. But I felt nothing. I wasn't happy, nor sad. Is that even normal? So I told David what Aunt Haley had told me, and to my surprise, he already knew. His grandmother had told him. So we decided to go down to Tupelo for my aunt's burial ceremony. After we came back from the cemetery, Auntie Haley called me aside and gave me a box saying that it had everything that was dear to my aunt and some letters that she had left for me. I didn't understand why my aunt would leave letters for me, but I brushed that off. Then a few months later, David and I got married. It was the happiest day of my life. That time, our children had just turned 4 years old. They grew up to be the most precious thing that had ever happened to our lives. I still thank God every day for giving me a chance to see them grow every day. I somehow wished my mother was present to see me walking down the aisle with my best friend, my lover, and the father of my kids. Life became gloomy and very bright for my little family. I also got a chance to be an obstetrician, which was what I had always wanted to be, especially after my past job that my aunt had introduced me to. I found it more important and interesting to know more about women's problems and their health. I didn't get that chance when I was still living with my aunt, but now I do have a chance to help those who went through what I had also been through. So my family, my husband, and my kids came up with a tradition that every Christmas, kids will get a chance to hunt for their Christmas spy every Christmas morning. We started that tradition when they were 3 years old, and we saw that they enjoyed hunting for a Christmas, so we continued doing it for them. My kids love running around. They are too active, and when they hunt for something, they make sure to look everywhere. That time we had gotten a new house, so they were not used to it much. And that time we had invited David's family. It was going to be their first Christmas with us in our new house. You know, it didn't come to me that I should move the box from where I had put it. I didn't even get a clue that I should move it. Another thing, ever since I had gotten it, I had never found time to open it. I don't know why, but I didn't feel like opening it. It was like I was angry or holding a grudge against my aunt, I don't know. Christmas Day came. I was preparing for the Christmas lunch, and the kids went wherever they had gone around the house. And I knew that if they get quiet, they would be up to nothing good. My kids can be mischievous a lot, so if you don't see them in more than 20 minutes or 30, you will have to look for them wherever they are. While I was rummaging through our storage room to find the kids and to check if they found the jingle, little did I know that an unexpected twist awaited the family. As I was searching for the mischievous kids, I found them in the storage room looking at some things. So as I went further in to see what they were looking at, I stumbled upon a box labeled Old Memories. Curiosity got the better of me, and she decided to take a peek inside. Mind you, the whole family had been looking for the kids also, because the house became so quiet without them. So as I went further in, I got the shock of my life. To my shock and dismay, I discovered a forgotten box of old photographs. As I leafed through the pictures, I realized that they were not the innocent family snapshots I had expected. Instead, they were explicit and inappropriate images that should never have been mixed with our cherished memories. I had long forgotten about the box that Aunt Haley once gave me, so the kids had opened it and found a lot of pictures and discs, along with a couple of letters that my aunt had written for me. My eyes were wide open and heart pounding. I realized the gravity of the situation. I knew I had to act quickly to prevent Lily and Ethan, the twins, from discovering more inappropriate photos. But I was already late. With a heavy heart, I carefully packed the box away and decided to just leave the room. I was embarrassed, humiliated, and shattered because the things I had thought I had buried with my past were actually catching up on me, in front of my husband's family and my kids. I didn't know how to react to my kids. They were looking at me with different eyes, of which I understood, because if I was the one finding my mother's inappropriate pictures, I would be traumatized. David came after me and asked about the pictures. I was lost in words. I didn't even know where to start explaining the ordeal. I knew I had to come clean to him about everything, with the hope that he would understand. The whole Christmas day got ruined. As much as the family tried to bring up the spark and laughter on the table so that the day would continue going smoothly. It was no longer the same as before they had seen the inappropriate pictures. I also got uncomfortable because I had told David that we would speak in the evening when we are alone. So, that evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat down with David, his face filled with concern. I started sharing the shocking discovery with him, tears welling up in my eyes. I told him everything about my past and the things that I had to do to survive at my aunt's house. David's initial reaction mirrored my expectations. I had expected him to be angry and throw tantrums, but that didn't happen. Instead, he got angry at the fact that I continued doing the job that my aunt wanted me to do even when we were in a relationship. He just left the room and went out. That day, he didn't even sleep in our bedroom. I was heartbroken and had so many questions in my mind, like why would my aunt tell Aunt Haley to give me that box knowing very well that I was in a relationship with David and we were engaged? I didn't believe how cruel my aunt could get and to think of how I would look at my kids after what they had discovered. The pictures of me with a grown man who looked old enough to be my father. The pictures of me dancing for those men with big pot bellies. To the pictures of me in the room with one of the clients that were my regulars, busy satisfying his sexual desires. It was too much to deal with, and I had told myself that I was definitely losing my husband. The following day, I had locked myself up in the bedroom. I was too ashamed to face the family and my kids. I didn't even want to see their reactions when they saw me, because I was convinced that they would look at me with disgusting eyes. So David came into the bedroom, and he wanted us to talk. Mind you, that time, my mind had already told me that I was losing my husband. The divorce word kept ringing in my head, and it was like I was losing my mind. I had never thought of myself losing my husband after so many years we had been together and after all the struggles we had faced. So before he said anything, I told him that I understood his behavior and would understand if he wanted to leave me because of my past. As I was saying that, tears were streaming down my face. My heart was breaking into many pieces. But to my surprise, he didn't judge me. Instead, he told me that he had expected me to come clean to him since he is my partner, but the past would never determine our purpose and goals. My heart was at ease a little when I heard him say that. Then together we grappled with the best course of action. From that day, we both knew that we had to protect our children from any inappropriate content they accidentally stumbled upon. I know it was careless of me to leave the box in the storage room, while I knew that my kids were naughty and mischievous. So after much discussion, we decided to seek professional guidance for the kids. We contacted a family therapist who specializes in child psychology, hoping to navigate the difficult conversation with Lily and Ethan in a safe and supportive manner. The following day, me, my husband and kids, gathered in the therapist's office. With a calm and empathetic approach, the therapist guided David and I on how to address the situation with our children. Together, we crafted a plan to explain the unexpected discovery while emphasizing the importance of personal boundaries and appropriate content. In a gentle and age-appropriate manner, my husband and I sat down with Lily and Ethan to have an open conversation. We had to do it earlier than later. So we explained that while searching for Jingle, that they ended up giving up on finding it, and explained about the ordeal that they accidentally stumbled upon some pictures that were not meant for them to see. We assured our children that they were safe and loved and wanted to protect them from anything that might confuse or upset them. We taught them a lot and even told them about my past, which was in the pictures. My husband told them to not look at me in a different way or have thoughts that their mother, me, was the person they saw in the pictures. Lily and Ethan listened intently, their innocent eyes filled with confusion and concern. My husband and I reassured them that the inappropriate content had nothing to do with their family and how they should react around me, and we were doing everything they could to keep them safe from any harm of the world. We continued to emphasize the importance of trust and encouraged our children to be open and honest about any confusing or uncomfortable situations they might encounter. I love my children so much, and it would kill me in my grave to hear or see that they were treated the way I was treated by my aunt. I appreciated my husband a lot. You know, sometimes it's hard not having a father figure in your life to guide you and protect you through all life challenges. I didn't have that chance to have a relationship with my father, to a point that I agreed and submitted to everything that my aunt would say, and somehow got used to it. But my children had a chance to have a father who loved them and would do anything for them in their lives. That made my heart be at peace. I was happy that I got to share all about my past with my family, and we plan to move on and continue to be a happy and loving family. Over time, our family grew even closer as we supported one another through the emotional aftermath. We had set a meeting with David's family and shared with them everything that happened in my past. The family was devastated by the news and couldn't believe that my aunt would do that, but I was glad that they didn't judge me, but our relationship grew closer and showed me lots of love and support. The whole decided to move forward with their lives and somehow forget about the inappropriate pictures. We would continue to support each other, cherish our time together, and never forget the importance of open communication and trust. We, my husband and I, attended therapy sessions together, discussing our feelings and fears openly, and learned valuable tools to cope with the unexpected challenges we would face in the future. As the years passed, the family healed, our bond fortified by our shared experience. My husband and I became advocates for open communication and created a safe space for our children to discuss any concerns they may have. Together, we transformed a difficult situation into an opportunity for growth and resilience. That was when I started a nonprofit organization for women who went through what I had also been through with my husband's help and support, of course. I mean, we grow through what we have been through, right? So why not help other women heal and grow from what they are going through? The unintended discovery became a pivotal moment in our lives, forever reminding us of the importance of trust, love, and the strength of our family. Through our united efforts, my husband, myself, Lily, and Ethan crafted a future filled with resilience, understanding, and the unwavering support that would guide us through life's unexpected twists and turns. We realized that the true spirit of Christmas was not found in material possessions or decorations, but in the love and support of our family and friends. And even though we had faced a terrible ordeal, we knew that we would come out stronger on the other side. Without any judgments, please share with me how I can heal from this, because as much as my family and I found help mentally, but I still see that my husband hadn't forgotten about it. But he is trying so hard to hide that. What should I do?